Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics video on the channel. It is Thursday and time for some captains ahead of round 16, the final week of the bye week. So, final round of the bye weeks, I should say. So it'd be probably the last easy week to have like a loop, obviously, because we get the bye players, we use them up to the last round. But starting from next week, we'll have to potentially go straight captain if you're in a really good position. But most of us got red dot. Hopefully they play later in, so you can still loop going into next week. But captains this week, and we'll go through the top 10 as we always do. A couple of options I'm either just outside or not considering at all this week. And then my V, C, and C plans for the week. Unfortunately, last week, not a great week for us. We ended up dropping down to 9th overall. Big part of that was having Lockie Whitfield at number 2, unfortunately. Can I actually get the rankings up from the previous week, or is it just... Yeah, it didn't show. My rank was that bad, it doesn't even come up. Yeah, so obviously not great. Bont at 1 was great. Obviously, not many people had him at 1, but having Whitfield at number 2 obviously stung a little bit. And then what do we have at number 3? Bailey Smith, he was obviously subpar. Brayshaw was a little bit quiet. And then Tim English was pretty good rounding out. So it was good besides Whitfield. But, yeah, unfortunately, we got an injury for our top 5. So let's hope that we can keep going. I still have all the experts have got, I think I've got like the best number 1 average of the number 1 pick. I think I'm like 10th, and I've got the best. I think next is Fry. So at least my number 1 picks are going well. Yeah, obviously dropped down the rankings slightly. So let's go through the top 10 after indulging myself in how my captains are going this year. So let's go through the top 10 for the week. And starting off at number 1. So number 1 and 2 are fairly obvious this week for a lot of reasons. And I've currently got Jordan Dawson just ahead at number 1, ahead of Nick Dacos. I'm going to bunch these two together. So Jordan Dawson, number 1, comes up against Richmond. Obviously, we know how good a matchup Richmond are as well. A few factors, the reason I've just got him over Nick Dacos. There's a chance I do switch this. So again, keep tuning in on Friday afternoon on the Pre-Lockout Chat, because that's when I'll do at my final sort of top 10. But at the time recording, I've got Dawson number 1. So we know, again, as I said, Richmond, great matchup. Looking here for inside mids, outside mids, they're plus 8 points, and then plus nearly 14 points for outside mids, and then inside mids was 8 points. They, in terms of like the whole season, well, that's the last 5 weeks, but the whole season line, there are the number 1 easiest matchup for mids. So I just think Dawson's going to take advantage of that. His last 3 scores against Richmond, 124 last year, 101, 99, his 3 games against them since being at the Crows. And his 2 games at the MCG this year against Essendon and then Collingwood, a 134 and then a 138. So loves playing at the G. Richmond's a good matchup. And I think Dawson is going to be a very, very good play as a captain. Number 2, as I mentioned, though, Nick Dacos up against West Coast 2. Again, West Coast for midfielders are a very good matchup again. And it's under the roof at Marvel. Dacos has 3 games against West Coast in his career. 131, 114, and 126. So some really strong scores there. And obviously had the tag last week. And we know players, when they get tagged one week, the next week they're a bit freer. They get a little bit extra balls away. He still had 30 touch last week against the Windhager tag. But maybe Jack Graham tries to run with Nick Dacos, but I think Nick Dacos gets it done regardless. So I think he goes well, and I've got him at number 2. I think, well, if Dawson's playing, they're up by a lot against Richmond, does he just rest forward? But then it's like Nick Dacos is more, like Jack Graham's more likely to tag Nick Dacos than they've got someone at Richmond to tag a Jordan Dawson. So that's why I've split them that way. Bont plays a very similar sort of role to Dawson, can go forward and play a lot of midfield, and he went 120. And I've got Dale too. But I think both are great options and both going to be very popular in terms of VCC combos this week. But if you want to go a bit different for the remaining sort of 8 players here, maybe do a different VC into one of these 2. Here's some names for you that you can consider. So Darcy Cameron is the first one on the list, up against West Coast. Scores 91 and 109 his last 2 against West Coast. But again, we know how good of a matchup West Coast are for rucks. And particularly if it's just Matt Flynn giving up some monster scores. I've got Darcy Cameron number 3. Not very popular, but a very popular draft player. So a lot of people in draft are going to use him as a captain. But if you've got him in Classic, there is a chance you go a bit unique this week and put Darcy Cameron as a VC or even captain if you don't have maybe one of the top 2. So Darcy Cameron, I do like this week as a bit of a differential. At number 4, I do have the Big X. I got Tristan Cherry. So very unlike me to go the top 4 in terms of percentage on captain's change. But I got Tristan Cherry, 109, 126 in his last 2 games against Hawthorn. And Hawthorn against Rucks, they're actually been pretty good. They're actually in the green. The only better matchups for rucks over the last 5 weeks has been Essendon, which we know how good a matchup they are, Richmond, Port Adelaide, GWS, even Tim English is up there as well, along with St Kilda and then Hawthorn. So all those teams giving up plus 8 points to rucks, and they're the good matchups, and the rest of them are average or bad. So I do like this matchup for Tristan Cherry. He's been disappointing, though, of late. So has it been 3 weeks since his last ton, or a couple of weeks? I know obviously he didn't get the ton last week with just the 84 points, 93. So 111 against West Coast was his last ton, but he's only gone 1 ton his last month. So the only ton was against West Coast, and he was in good form before that. So Collingwood, Freo, Carlton, the games where he hasn't tonned up. I do think, though, this game is going to be a game where he gets back to some form. So I do have the Big X at number 4. And then as my number 5 option, rounding out the top 5, I do have Noah Anderson against Melbourne. So really good matchup here. I like this matchup a lot for Noah Anderson. So again, Melbourne, a decent matchup for midfielders, giving up plus 4.4 to inside mids, plus 8.9 to outside mids. We know that Anderson does his work for both. And his last 3 against Melbourne are very, very good. 117, 118, 132. Before that, 95 and 80. But his last 3 particularly have been really, really strong. And I think that he is a play. Potentially as a VC, if you want to VC him into one of the top sort of couple, if you've got them there, if you weren't looking at a Tristan Cherry this week. So Anderson, if you've got him, regardless if you VC him or see him, I think he's in for a good week, and he makes my top 5 this week for the matchup. Going through the 6 through 10. So at number 6, I've got Brodie Grundy against Tim English. So Tim English has actually been giving up some points of late. So over the last 5 weeks, been giving up plus 10.1 points. And we know how good of a form Brodie Grundy's in. So just to get some numbers on how good Brodie Grundy is going at the moment. So obviously went the 121 last week, but then before that, 139, 124, 134, 111, and 115. So he's been absolutely fantastic. Some good matchups there, but also like Melbourne, Adelaide are in there as well. Even Carlton's a bit tougher. He went over 110 in every one of those games. And last couple of weeks, Port Adelaide and Richmond are good matchups. I think this is a decent matchup for Grundy against English. And if you've got Grundy, I think he's in for another good score. 107 and 119 in his last 2 against the Western Bulldogs. So I think Grundy will put up another strong score. Continuing the ruck theme, which, funny enough, 4 of the 5 of the bottom half are all rucks. So we've got a lot of rucks up there this week. So at number 7, I've got Rowan Marshall. I don't know whereabouts he is on this list here. Probably he's actually down the list a fair bit, actually. There you go, down the list here against Freo. I do like the matchup Marshall against Luke Jackson. So scored a 91 against Freo earlier this year, but that was with Darcy and Jackson. So I looked at the most recent game where it was just Darcy and Jackson against Marshall, which was last year under the roof at Marvel. Ryan Marshall scored a 171. Obviously, we know that he wasn't carrying a couple of niggles back then, but he had a massive score. Been very up and down his last 5 against Freo. 91, the 171, 72, 102, 64. So if you're going on that, he's due for a ton against Freo. And I think he will if it's just against Luke Jackson. If this is against Darcy and Jackson, he would move down the list probably to like maybe 9 or 10, maybe even outside the 10 because a couple of guys just outside that could easily be in here. But I got Marshall because I just assumed that they're going to play Jackson as a side ruck because of how good he's been. But if that does change, he would move down maybe a place or 2. Coming in at number 8, I do have the only non-ruck out of this top lot, which is Nasiah Wanganeen Millera up against Freo. 103 and 110 in his last 2 games against Freo, and the 103 was earlier this year at Marvel. His form has been absolutely fantastic, particularly since round 7, where he's gone 131, 103, 108, 76 against West Coast, which, funny enough, was at Optus where he's playing this week. 134, 117, 128, 125 in his last 4 weeks. Has been fantastic. He is someone that if you want to have a look at him, maybe if you want to have a look at Jordan Dawson as your VC and you want to crack at his score, Nasiah could be a potential captain in that final game if you're inclined to go that way. So I do like Nasiah Wanganeen Millera this week as an option and would be a lot more relevant, I think, for a lot of people if it wasn't for Dawson and Dacos having such good matchups this week. Tim English is at number 9. Again, Tim English has been in amazing form of late as well. So I'm just getting up his scores because he's now moved into, I believe, the fourth highest averaging player, averaging 110 points on the season. And from round 7, round 8-6, he's got it done. So he's gone 100, 124, 145, 92, 102, 95, 139, 120, and 138. So the only 2 scores under 100 was against Jared Witts and then against Geelong, which was a bit interesting. But his last 3, all over 120, in very, very good form. It's just the way Grundy's playing at the moment, it's going to be a bit of a tougher matchup. Grundy's a bad matchup for rucks, particularly over the last 5 weeks. He's the 4th hardest matchup behind, Carlton, Brisbane, and North Melbourne. Fair enough, Jared Witts is actually giving up more points over the last 5 weeks than what Grundy is. So that's an interesting stat there in itself. So that's the only reason he's down the list more. Last 5 against Sydney, 91, 91, 140, 99, and 138. Some good scores there, but a few lower ones. I think this would be a trickier matchup for Tim English against Sydney. But if you want a VC on the Friday night, he could be someone you look at. And the final one, rounding out the top 10, is Tom De Koning against Port Adelaide. A bit of a late addition to this because I saw that Pitney hasn't been named for tonight's game. So that's the reason that I've put Tom De Koning in the top 10. Come up against Port Adelaide. They're still running with the Sweet and Vicentini duo, but we know that they're giving up a lot of points to rucks. Obviously, Grundy went really well last week in the end over 120. The week before, it was Gawn who went over 120 as well. So we know Tom De Koning when he's solo and has a good matchup, he can put up some really, really good scores. So like just for example here, if we get up Tom De Koning and his numbers for the season. So he went like a 132 against Richmond in a good matchup, 107 against Hawthorn, good matchup, 130 against the Dogs, a 117 against Geelong. He had the 75 against West Coast in a better matchup, but that was that really hot day during Gather Round. 104 against St Kilda. The 74 against GWS West Wales, his first game back from injury. Then a 121 against Essendon and a 109 against West Coast. So tons up more often not in a good matchup, and I think this is a game where he can go quite well. So if you've still got him and you want a differential, Tom De Koning could be your man as a potential captain. Just some other options I don't mind just in this list here. So Gawn, I'm not touching this week against Jared Witts. If you still got him, obviously Gawn's such a good play. You could VC if you want to, but I just think the matchup's really tough this week. I think there are better options this week, but obviously tough going against the second highest averaging player for the season. Andrew Brayshaw just missed out. His last couple against St Kilda haven't been great. 78, 94, but went 114, 144, and then that 181 against them before that. They were playing differently to what they were doing when he was putting up those massive scores. But I think if Sarong gets a tag, which I think he will, I think a good score is coming for Andrew Brayshaw. Marcus Bonampelli, I think, goes okay as well. 81 and 98 in his last 2 against Sydney, but then a 142, 94, and 100 before that. So not great recent history against them, but I think the tag goes to Bailey Dale. If not, then maybe Ned Richards. I think Bont will be fine. It's his 250th as well. So if you believe in like the milestone matches means a good score, then you can maybe look at a potential Marcus Bonampelli there. You've also got Connor Rozee. Chin Colin might go his way or Butters, so I'm not looking at Rozee or Butters. Obviously, I mentioned Anderson and Grundy. Sheasel against Hawthorn, tricky matchup. Has turned up in every game against Hawthorn in his career, but I'm probably just looking at other options with a tougher matchup this week. Luke Jackson, that is his second score over 120. Marshall's a tougher matchup than Vicentini. I think he'll go well, but I'm not looking there for a VCLC this week. Josh Dacos was someone that just missed outside the top 10, and I don't mind. 120, 80, and 107 in his last 3 against West Coast, and we know West Coast is a better matchup for defenders outside of Western Australia. So Dacos has turned up in his last 4 games and 6 of his last 8, so I think he could have a good score there. Matt Kenny obviously turns up every single week, but Sydney is a trickier matchup, I think, the way they're playing now. So not sure I want to go Kennedy's way this week. Sarong, definitely not with the Windhager tag. I'd be looking for other options this week. Who else we got? And you're not looking at any of these other guys, I don't think. There's not really anyone else here that I'd be... Like Jordan Clark in draft would actually be a good captain against St Kilda this week, but it's probably about it. That would be where I'd be cutting in terms of the options there this week. In terms of my plans, I'm Nick Dacos VC into Jordan Dawson. Pretty simple for me this week. My finalised 10 will be on Friday, so make sure you tune to the pre-lockout chat to get the updated list. But that will be where we cut it off for round 16. So they're my plans. Let me know in the comments below, guys, what you guys are doing with your captain and vice captain in round 16. We're interested to see where you guys are going. If you guys are, comment below, particularly if you're going anyone other than Dawson or Dacos. If you're going someone else as maybe a VC, or even a C and you want a VC one of these guys, let me know what you're doing in the comments below. I'd be interested to see what you guys are doing. And if you'd like to join our Patreon and get all your guaranteed answers there, because I can't always get to the comments below or on all the other social platforms, head over to patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics, where you can get all of your questions answered there. Team reviews, exclusive Patreon Q&As, which are recorded last night. So do those every Wednesday. So if you want to get involved in those as well, and you want to help spice a little bit extra as well, head over to our Patreon. Link is in the description as well. But yeah, make sure you guys smash a big old thumbs up on the video. That would be very much appreciated. And subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We are on the way to 5,000 subscribers. So we are, thank you guys again for getting us to 4K. Now we're trying to go to 5K. And that is our next big goal. I'll be back later on tonight for a watch-along for the Port Adelaide and Carlton game. So looking forward to that one. A few relevant players in that game. So looking forward to another watch-along again. And tomorrow we're back for a pre-lockout chat. As always, 6 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Perth time. And then likely another watch-along tomorrow night as well for the Bulldogs, Sydney and Bulldogs game at the SCG. So looking forward to those. So we'll catch you guys in any of those. Have a good night and good luck in Thursday night footy. And yeah, good luck with your captains. Thanks, everyone. Catch you then. See ya.